Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Richard Dabate? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoy this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Richard Dabate was born on July 29, 1976, and lived in Connecticut. He went by the name Rick. He met a woman named Connie at a party. The two started dating and eventually married. In 2015, Rick and Connie lived in Ellington, Connecticut, and they had two sons, ages 9 and 6. At some point, Rick started having an affair with a woman named Sarah. In July 2015, Sarah told Rick that she was pregnant. Before moving to the timeline of the crime, let's hear a word from today's sponsor, Factor. Resolving to save time this new year? Get Factor and not only skip the trip to the grocery store, but skip the chopping, preparation, and cleaning as well. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes, so all you have to do is heat and enjoy. Factor helps you avoid takeout and ordering in with delicious and nutritious, no-nonsense food that's ready quickly. Factor's chef-prepared meals make it easy to eat well, so you never have to opt for something that isn't good for you. Factor takes the guesswork out of grocery shopping and meal preparation, saving you time and energy for other things. At Factor, registered dietitians work hand in hand with their kitchen to ensure every meal is made from scratch with nutritious ingredients. Factor is ideal for my busy lifestyle because it saves me time going to the grocery store and cooking. Factor helps me to stay productive during my workday. Head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code DrGrande60 to get 60% off your first Factor box. That's 60% off your first box at Factor75.com, code DrGrande60. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On December 23, 2015, at about 10:16 a.m., the Connecticut State Police received a phone call from a security company that monitored the home of Rick and Connie. The company said that the panic alarm had been activated for the residents 5 minutes earlier. At 10:22 a.m., Rick placed a 911 call and requested help. Moaning could be heard on the line. First responders who arrived at his house noticed that the right side garage door was open. Inside the house, they found Rick lying on the floor. One arm and one leg was zip-tied to a folding chair. He was transported to the hospital, but only had minor injuries and was released the same day. The police found Connie's body in the basement of the house. She had been shot once in the stomach and once in the back of the head. She did not survive. Here's what happened according to Rick. This is the story he gave the police. That morning, Rick prepared for work as Connie prepared to go to the gym. Rick put his sons on the bus at 8:10 a.m. He left for work sometime between 8:10 and 8:30 a.m. As he was leaving, his wife was looking for her exercise shoes. Presumably, she was going to leave shortly. About 10 minutes after Rick started driving to work, he realized that he forgot his laptop and needed to return home to get it. At the same time, he received an alert from the security system, so he thought he would check that out at the same time. Rick arrived back at his home sometime between 8:45 and 9 a.m. He walked into his house and heard a noise upstairs. He thought that his cats had triggered the alarm. Maybe the cats were reporting a cat burglar. It's not clear. Rick walked upstairs to investigate. As he stepped into a walk-in closet, he was attacked by a large man wearing camouflage and a mask. The intruder, who Rick said had a voice like Vin Diesel, threw him around, demanded his wallet, threatened him, and produced a knife. So a lot was happening in a small space in a short amount of time. The attack was fast and furious. About a minute into the attack, the garage door opened and Rick's wife Connie entered the house. Later, it was determined that her exercise class had been canceled, which is why she returned home so quickly. Rick yelled for Connie to leave, but she ran to the basement instead. This is where the couple stored one of their firearms. The intruder pushed Rick downstairs and chased after Connie into the basement, which was pitch black. Rick heard his wife say, "I have a gun, get out of the house," He then heard 2 gunshots. The intruder must have somehow taken the gun from Connie and shot her. The intruder then turned his attention back to Rick, grabbed him, and used some type of pressure point maneuver on him. The intruder zip-tied one of Rick's arms and one of his legs to a folding chair. During this physical altercation, the intruder attacked Rick with a box cutter and a blowtorch. Rick fought the intruder with his free arm and leg. At one point, he burned the intruder's mask with the blowtorch. Rick managed to get to the kitchen and activate the panic alarm and reach his cell phone and call 911. The intruder must have left out of the house through the basement door. The police did not believe that Rick was telling the truth. They think that he murdered his wife. Rick staged the crime scene to make it look as though an intruder was the killer, but there was no intruder. Rick was arrested on April 14, 2017. His trial started on April 2022. He maintained his innocence and testified on his own behalf. Richard Dabate was convicted and sentenced to 65 years in prison. Now moving to my analysis. Some people believe that Rick is innocent. They accuse the police of developing tunnel vision and not properly investigating the intruder story. Let's take a look at the evidence, both for and against the idea that Rick was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. There was no forced entry into Rick's house. In the master bedroom closet, where the intruder supposedly was, there was no evidence that anything was disturbed. Connie had been shot to death, but had no defensive injuries. It did not look like she had been in a struggle. The murder weapon was a Ruger .357 Magnum revolver, which was registered to Rick. He had just purchased it about 2 months before the murder. Rick had the alarm system put in at around the same time. According to Rick, both the gun and the alarm system were purchased in response to an incident that he and his wife had with a contractor who was hired to remodel their bathroom. Rick claimed that they were being harassed by this contractor. He said the contractor broke the windshield of his vehicle. The police investigated the contractor. He had an alibi and was cleared as a potential suspect. Rick's wallet was not found far from the basement door where the intruder supposedly exited. A police dog tracked the scent from the wallet back to Rick, who at that time was inside the house receiving medical attention. The dog handler had the dog track the scent again. The dog once again went from the wallet directly to Rick, who was now in the back of an ambulance. I get the impression that if dogs could talk, this one would have said, "Seriously, get the hint." Rick stated that he opened the garage door to get in the house when he returned to get his laptop. If Rick heard Connie open the garage door when he was with the intruder, why didn't the intruder hear the garage door when Rick entered only a few moments earlier? It makes no sense that the intruder would murder Rick's wife, but then zip-tie Rick to a chair and attack him with various objects. Rick was having an affair at the time when his wife was killed. His affair partner, Sarah, had become pregnant with Rick's child. She was due in February 2016, just 2 months after the murder occurred. Rick referred to Sarah as his love nugget, which may have been his attempt to boost the sales of anti-nausea medication. Rick told Sarah that he was getting divorced, but he had made no plans to do so, and Connie was not aware of the affair or divorce. Rick initially told this complex story to the police about how Connie wanted a child, but could not get pregnant due to medical issues. He knew Sarah wanted a baby. Rick said he did some quote-unquote untraditional things, and Sarah became pregnant. But Connie was fine with the pregnancy. Data collected from the security system, a Fitbit that Connie was wearing, and other devices indicated that Rick's timeline did not make sense. On the day of the murder, Rick activated the panic alarm at 10:11 a.m. and called the police a few minutes later. He claimed that these notifications occurred not long after the attack started, but his wife arrived home at 9:23 a.m. Connie's Fitbit last recorded movement at 10:05 a.m., which meant that she was home for at least 42 minutes before she was killed. This is inconsistent with her walking in and being attacked immediately. The security system last detected movement on the second floor at 9:35 a.m., but according to Rick's story, it should have detected movement several minutes after that. Rick's story kept on changing. A few examples. He changed the time that he woke up in the morning. He initially said that he was pushed downstairs by the intruder. Then he said he tripped. He told the police that he only heard the gunshots. Then he said he saw his wife get shot. After that, he claimed he didn't know. And Rick initially said that after coming home, he went directly upstairs. However, when he testified in court, he suggested that he went online and relaxed for a while before going upstairs. Prior to the murder, Rick made a number of internet searches that didn't look too good for him. For example, deadly over-the-counter combinations, fast, untraceable homemade poison, and tasteless poison easily available. He also searched how to use antifreeze as poison and where to purchase ricin. 12 days after the murder, Rick canceled the alarm monitoring contract with the security company. I can imagine a representative at the security company saying, "Sir, are you sure you want to cancel? You were the victim of a home invasion just 12 days ago." Rick responds with something like, "Well, a lot of good it did. The system didn't catch me. I mean, the killer, whoever he was." Moving to the exculpatory factors, unidentified DNA was found at the crime scene in places that appear to corroborate Rick's story. For example, the DNA was found in the master bedroom closet, on a box where the gun was stored in the basement, on the gun itself, inside of Rick's shirt, and on the door out of the basement. Rick's affair partner, Sarah, did not pressure him to get divorced. She was willing for them to go their separate ways if Rick wanted to keep his family together. When considering the evidence, do I think that Richard Dabate was guilty? Yes, I think he was guilty in reality and guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. One could argue that his guilt is almost undebatable. Moving to the next section, what do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Rick started having an affair with Sarah and eventually envisioned having a life with her. When she became pregnant, Rick was forced to make a decision. He had to either stay with his wife Connie or he needed to leave her. Sarah was fine with either decision. It was up to Rick. He decided that he definitely wanted to be with Sarah, but wondered if there was a way to do that that didn't involve leaving his wife and going through a messy divorce. Maybe something could happen where his wife could leave him permanently. Rick was aware that the police would be looking at him as a suspect if his wife suddenly died. He explored various homicidal options to find one that would increase his chances of escaping. Rick may have been reluctant to dispose of his wife's body after the homicide, because that would be too much work, and he could still be convicted of murder even without a body. He searched the internet for information about poison. Maybe he liked how that method didn't necessarily involve blood and gore. Ultimately, however, poisoning was too complex for Rick. He probably thought about trying to make it look like his wife brought an end to her own life, but once again he ran into logistical and technical issues. For example, Rick didn't know anything about firearms, bullet trajectory, gunshot residue, or anything like that. He told the police he didn't even know how to clean a gun. Rick decided that if his wife died mysteriously, it would be difficult to hide the fact that she was murdered. Therefore, he gravitated toward this idea of staging a home invasion. Rick thought that this was the safest homicidal option for him. He started planning the crime a few months in advance. Rick knew he could decrease his chances of being caught if he framed someone else for the murder. He also needed an excuse to buy a firearm. Rick used a disagreement with a contractor to satisfy both of these concerns. He broke the windshield of his car to make it look like the contractor was harassing him and his wife. He then used this fabricated attack as justification to purchase the firearm as well as the alarm system. Rick may have needed the gun for his plan, but the alarm system was definitely not his friend. It's not clear why he thought that getting the alarm system was a good idea. Maybe he thought it simply reinforced the story that he and his wife were afraid. On the day of the murder, Rick set his plan in motion. He somehow lured his wife to the basement and shot her twice. He then threw his wallet into the backyard, mildly injured himself, zip-tied himself to a folding chair, and called the authorities. Rick was not able to keep his story straight or align it with all the various data being captured by the alarm system, cell phones, and his wife's Fitbit. When he testified in his own defense, he tried changing his story to match with the timeline data, but it was too late. Now moving to my final thoughts. Richard Dabate was an unusual killer in many ways. He had no criminal record, no history of violence, and it does not appear as though his wife Connie was aware of his infidelity. There was nothing Connie could have done. She had little or no warning that anything like this was going to happen. For example, there was no reason to believe that Rick would have broken his own windshield. Without realizing this deception, the gun purchase did not seem suspicious. Rick was lost in his own fantasy world. He thought that his infidelity would lead to happiness, and he vastly overestimated his ability to fabricate a crime scene. As part of his home invasion, Rick created a fictitious bad guy with a voice like Vin Diesel. This highlighted a compelling analogy. Just like Vin Diesel, Rick was not capable of delivering a convincing acting performance. If Rick wanted to choose an actor with a distinct voice, James Stewart, Sean Connery, or Jeremy Irons would have been far better selections. Those are my thoughts on the case of Richard Dabate. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.